Greetings and welcome to Monarch channel, guys. Hope everyone is doing fine and you are ready for more scary stories. But before we start, please hit subscribe button and like the video. If any of you have your own YouTube channel and you need some background videos, please visit my other channel, Monarch Free Videos. They are all copyright free and you can use it any way you like, you don't have to ask for it. All I ask is for you to subscribe, like and share a link. You can find link to my copyright free background videos in the description box. Okay, let's get started. The Redwood Cabin. I used to live in Japan, but recently moved to a town somewhere in America. At our town there was a story going around that a cult had a cabin somewhere in the woods near our town, and that they were doing incantations, summoning spirits and specters, the usual paranormal stuff. Me and my friend Jack, who I met when I first came to the town, didn't really believe in the paranormal. So when we had an opportunity to do so, we would every so often camp near the section of where the cabin was rumored to be and search around for it. It didn't take long, since on our fifth time we found where it was. The cabin was completely hideous. It was infested with cockroaches, spiders and even some centipedes. The left side of the cabin was decayed slightly. The right side had a bit of a termite problem. At first it looked like any old rundown cabin. Then we took a second, much closer look. That was when a horrid stench hit us. It was horrible. I gagged and almost vomited. Even though I was busy dealing with the stench, Jack was able to get a look at the walls. They were covered with signs, upside-down crosses, bloody red eyes, and the most frightening parts, body of people completely stripped of their clothing and nailed to the wall of the cabin. I thought of going to police or running. Jack, however, horrified he was, insisted on going into the cabin. "I'm not believing this. It's probably just so really good deco," he said. As reluctant as I was, I pushed onward, Jack leading with his flashlight. We opened the door slowly. That when I couldn't take it anymore. I vomited onto the grass just to the left of the cabin. The reason I vomited was even worse than the stench outside. Just in the front door was a dead dog. It has been butchered and left to rot. Worse, it was a local dog that had went missing just 2 days before we found the cabin. Jack gently pushed the dog to the side so he could get inside. He waited a bit for me and we kept going. Inside was like the exterior, only exception was blood-red runes replacing the bodies. We came into the main living room of the cabin. It had a big ritual circle. The walls were different too. This time, now, the spotting words such as devil, the beast, our master, the end, and much more terrifying words. Such as the runes and the eyes, it was blood red. Except this time it seems like it was real blood. That was when I figured out that the other drownings were simply dried, and it didn't look as clear as those. The more I figured out, the worse I felt. If the others were dried, wouldn't that mean that these were just made? I couldn't take it anymore. I turned to the cabin door, and what I saw I can never unsee. A tall, slender figure covered in intestines, blood, organs and everything gross and purid. It was blocking the cabin door. That was when I screamed as loud as I could. I turned back to look at Jack. Though he still looked like a Jack, the man I looked at was carrying a knife. He had a grin on his face, widening by the seconds. I backed away from him, but he grabbed my arm and dragged me closer. I struggled, trying to get away, but his grip was locked firmly. I watched in the horror as the knife was raised. That was when I made a last-ditch effort. I kicked him in the forbidden zone, which worked, and I ran toward the direction of the door. That was when I bumped into the slender figure again. Now I could make out its face. What I saw was not human. It looked like the face of something out of the deep depths of the hell itself. I shambled back a bit, then remembering Jack was there, I moved to the right. I found a window, the only window in the entire cabin. I tried and tried to open it, but it simply didn't budge. I turned back in shock as I realized that this how was it going to end. I was gonna be murdered in some satanic cabin by my friend. I crouched down, now in tears, and closed my eyes. I waited for the knife to end it all. I waited, but eventually nothing happened. So I slowly opened my eyes and I saw that it was daytime. Jack, or possessed Jack, has collapsed on the floor, still clenching the knife. The figure was gone. And I tried the window again, and now that it was daylight, I saw that it was locked. I unlocked it and opened it up. How silly, I thought, that I didn't check for the locks. I made a mental note to always do that, and then proceeded to exit via window, carrying Jack through it first. I ran to our campsite, put Jack to his tent, and went into mine. I recapped on what happened and then put this in my diary. Though this wasn't the nearest near-death experience I ever had, it was definitely the most extreme and grotesque. I waited for Jack to wake up and then headed back to town with him. I never told anyone what happened and definitely didn't tell Jack, who is now my best friend of all time, that he almost killed me. The most active haunted house I have ever encountered. My sister lives in the most active haunted house I have been in. It doesn't freak my sister out all that bad, or me for most part, because we both grew up in the haunted house, so we are no strangers to the unexplained. When it comes to my brother-in-law and the kids, it's a different story. Within 2 weeks of moving in, my sister saw a full-bodied apparition standing in the dining room. It was an apparition of an older man wearing a large brimmed hat and a vest. 2 weeks later, my brother-in-law saw the same man and he didn't take it as well, considering he is petrified of ghosts. It happened again to my brother-in-law about a month later, only this time the man was standing in the entryway to the house and could be seen through the screen door looking out. He stayed in his car until my sister got home. My brother-in-law is no coward and it's quite dangerous in a brawl, but I think he draws the line at the things he can't punch. My sister and brother-in-law acquired the house from a friends of theirs who were the previous occupants. They approached them and asked them if they had experienced anything strange while they lived there, and they responded with, "Did you see the man?" Obviously the prior occupants had seen this entity quite regularly to give such a matter-of-fact response, like it was an old friend of theirs or something. I was oblivious to those happenings until my sister and brother-in-law told me about them. I became intrigued and offered to check it out, considering I was going to be at their house anyway to help hang sheetrock. When I got there, only my brother-in-law was there and he told me about the footsteps that had recently started. I used to do ghost hunting as a hobby back in the day, but in all that time I had never heard ghostly footsteps. I was a little excited, to be honest. We started cutting and hanging sheetrock in the kitchen when, sure as shit, I clearly heard someone walking around right above my head on the second floor. I looked at my brother-in-law with a smirk and said, "Are you serious, dude?" He responded with, "It happens all the time now." A little chill went out my spine and we went back to work, all the while listening to the unmistakable sound of heavily footed walk and shuffling above our heads. To be honest, I wish I had recorded it. It just kept going on and going on. Suddenly the footsteps and shuffling stopped, and I stayed quiet for about 10 minutes. Then we heard a slamming sound that shook the floor. This rattled us both. The only thing that could have made that sound were two old heavy wooden cellar doors outside. I told my brother-in-law we have to go check it out. Understandably, he wasn't a huge fan of the idea. My main concern was that off chance that someone broke in to steal stuff, so I grabbed a claw hammer and told him to just back me off if shit gets real. I'll be honest, my hands were shaking when we pulled open the cellar doors and made the descent into the musty old basement. We searched every inch of the basement, but there was no one down there, at least that we could see. Again, I got a chill up my spine and get the hell out of there. That was my first experience in the house. A few months later, I offered to stay overnight and record the basement with a baby monitor. Not high-tech, I know, but it gets the job done. I set the baby monitor up with the creepiest feeling. I watched it using my laptop and recorded roughly 16 hours of footage. I never caught anything on video, but the audio was very interesting and a bit unnerving. There was constant, barely audible murmuring, even into the early morning hours when everyone, including me, had long gone to sleep. It sounded like numerous individuals were having a conversation they didn't want anyone to hear. Oddly, the activity came to a halt with no explanation and the house was quiet for a bit, a year until recently. The things that happen now put me on the edge a bit because I have seen things in broad daylight that I can't explain. On 2 occasions, I have seen what looks like a woman walking through the front yard towards the back of the house, but when I went to check it out, there was no one there. One of the kids experienced something almost identical, but far more terrifying, not long after me. One of my nephews was playing in the backyard in the afternoon when a woman's head creeped around the backside of the house and was staring at him. My nephew panicked and ran behind one of the cars in the driveway. A few seconds later he heard walking up the outside stairwell leading to the second floor, but couldn't see anyone physically up there. I find this distressing in a way because all the activity before seemed random, as if the ghosts weren't aware of our presence, but now it seems they are quite aware. It has quieted down a bit, but this house has its ebbs and flows. I pray the ghosts don't try making physical contact next. Lurking in the darkness outside. This creepy experience must have happened about a year ago now, around Halloween, and to this day it still creeps the F out of me. Me and my twin sister, Loreen, both 20 now, had moved into our first flat 3 months before this happened. Our parents helped us move into the flat, my dad hiring a van to get all of our stuff, and the whole family, including my elder brother Sam, who was visiting from England, helped us move furniture and boxes into the flat. Our family helped us settle in, and luckily enough our flat was actually next door to the one of our dad's old friends, Danny, which was great as we hadn't seen him and his wife in about 10 years. The neighborhood we lived in, which is a smallish village about an hour or so from Glasgow in Scotland, is 99% of the time really quiet and everybody around the area is really nice. But this one night, something wasn't quite right. Like I have said already, we had only really got used to the area we were living in, but after what happened this one night, I always have my wits about me. It was a dark winter's night in late October, early November, a Tuesday I think, and me and my sister decided to stay up until about 1:30 in the morning, as we sometimes did after a long week at college. We would stay up drinking, stuffing our faces, and talking about random stuff like acting, the subject we were both studying, motorbikes, guys, and some bitching too, just like any normal young woman would do. We then decided to put the lights out and go to bed as we had grown tired. I would do normal nightly routine to check everything was turned off and the doors was locked. which it was, thankfully, as a few nights previously I had forgotten to lock it, so we both went to bed and fell asleep as usual. Just to set the layout of our flat, me and my sister were on the first floor above an old woman, Betty, who is rather lovely, but we don't see her very often. Our bedroom is right next to the porch and the front door, and our bedroom window looks out onto the street. It was about 4 a.m. when we awoke to a loud knocking at our door. I was expecting a parcel the next day, so initially thought it would be the postman. But that's when I checked the time on my phone, which I usually leave on the case of emergency, and it was 4:30 a.m. Still being tired and disorientated, I realized that it was far too dark to be about 10 a.m. when the postman usually came, even though the morning were much darker now during the winter months. The banging on the door lasted about what felt like 20 minutes, but was probably less. Me and my sister were too scared to move from our beds, only whispering quietly to each other to just ignore the banging on the door. Neither of us were very comfortable about answering the door to a stranger knocking at the ungodly hour. I don't usually answering the door to strangers or even answer mobile numbers I don't recognize. The banging stopped suddenly, and I heard heavy footsteps descend down the outside stairs next to the wall near my head. Everything fell silent for a few minutes, so I tried to settle back down, but my adrenaline was going crazy. I could feel my legs shaking. I was so nervy about whoever it was outside. There was no way I was getting back to sleep. Then I saw the flashing of a torch through our bedroom window. It flashed at least 3 times, but maybe more. It then stopped. I then heard what sounded like a man talking on the phone to someone or having a conversation with someone outside, sounding a bit agitated and angry. I didn't look outside our bedroom window in case the man saw me, but a few minutes later I heard the rumbling of a car engine below me, so I assumed he that came in his car. His voice became increasingly explosive as I became more and more scared. It got to the point where I was about to phone the police, but then I heard the man opening his car door and leaving swiftly along the street. I don't know who the man was or what he wanted, but I didn't sleep at all that night, and for the next few days after that, every single noise would give me a fright. I was scared that whoever it was going to come back. But the story doesn't end there. In the end, I thought it was someone with the wrong address or maybe just a drunk guy. But after a week later, we got knock at the door about 6:30 in the evening, which was unusual for a quiet area, and neither me or my sister were expecting any mail packages or shopping to be delivered. So I decided to open the door to whoever had knocked. Initially, I thought it was our neighbor, as he had been round once before to see how we were settling in, but not this time. It was a woman who was dressed in a suit and looked very professional, her hair up in a tight bun and holding a clipboard. I was a bit anxious and wondered who the hell she is. I looked down at her name badge, but I can't remember her name now. Let's just call her Molly. Molly said she worked for the criminal courts and was looking for a guy, let's call him Thomas, who had previously been a tenant at this flat before we moved in a few months before. Molly mentioned something to do with money, but the visit was so vague I don't really remember what she said. She asked if the man lives there, and I said no, just me and my sister. She asked when we moved in and what letting agency we were with, but I think that was just to confirm that we did live there. She seemed nice enough, got what she wanted and left, so I guess money is the reason why the creepy guy turned up a few nights previously, banging loudly on our door. I'm so glad I didn't answer the door that night and that I made sure it was locked. God knows what would happen if he thought that we were the man he and the courts were looking for. I'm happy to say that since then we had no further disturbances at our flat, but it still gives me the chills just thinking about it. I just hope this creep never comes back. Thank you guys for stopping by, hope you liked these stories. Before you leave, please subscribe and hit the like button. If you have any stories, true or fictional, or maybe you have some scary videos you would like to submit, email is in the description box. And if you need any copyright-free background videos, subscribe to our other channel, Monarch Free Videos, as well. Links are down there. Just put a link to your description box. That's all, no permissions needed. Stay safe and I'll see you soon.